Welcome to MVP, the Visionz Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon, and I'm here to share insights, stories, and strategies for living with intention, growth, and purpose. If you're ready to close out 2024 strong and to step into 2025 prepared for success, this episode is for you. Today, we're diving into an incredible story from the Old Testament about resilience, emotional intelligence, and faith. Let's start with the question: how can challenges and setbacks actually prepare us for the growth that we desire? In the book of Genesis, chapters 37 through 50, we read about the life of Joseph, who had a dream, was persecuted and hated by his brothers, who was sold into slavery, who was falsely accused, and he also was imprisoned. Yet through it all, Joseph remained faithful, used his gifts wisely, was appointed to a leadership position, and used his power to save many nations. Which leads me to my next point, the scripture I want to highlight for you, which is Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. You intended to harm me, but God intended for me to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. What if every challenge that you're facing right now is preparing you for a greater purpose? Let's unpack this together. At first glance, Joseph's story seems unfair. He had a dream which he shared with his loved ones, his mother and father, and his brothers, which Joseph happened to be the youngest of all his brothers. It was revealed to him through his dream that he was going to rise above all his brothers, and his brothers will be kneeling and bowing to him. And for that, Joseph faced betrayal, injustice, and many years of hardship. It's easy to wonder why someone who has so much faith will go through so much hardship, but let's see what God's plan for him was. As we dissect his journey, there's a deeper narrative to Joseph's suffering. First, Joseph received a dream, and in that dream was a revelation that he believed in. Next is when Joseph was in the pit. Joseph's brothers, out of jealousy, were initially going to kill him, but one of them stood up and said, no, let's actually sell him into slavery so we can at least benefit ourselves from it. So they took Joseph and they threw him in a pit, and Joseph sat there. And in that predicament, Joseph learned humility. Before his brothers could return, some slave traders had picked up Joseph and sold him into slavery down in Egypt. And there in Egypt, he was set to serve in Potiphar's house, where he refined his work ethic and integrity. After being falsely accused of assault by Potiphar's wife, Joseph was thrown into prison, where he developed his gift of interpretation and he learned patience. During his time in prison, Joseph used his gift of dream interpretation to interpret the dream of two of the prisoners. Both dreams happened to come true. One was set to be executed, which happened. The other one was set to be reinstated back into the palace, and that happened. Also during this time, the Pharaoh was having dreams himself, which later Joseph would go on to interpret for him. Joseph's journey teaches us that every season has a purpose, even the painful ones. Let me share this with you. I've experienced moments in my life that felt like I was in the pit, whether it was navigating career transitions, facing doubt, or trying to juggle the responsibilities of work and family. But looking back, I can see how those moments actually strengthened me by allowing me to dig deeper within myself, revealing my resilience in those moments, knowing that God is not going to give me anything that I cannot overcome, that anything presented to me is a challenge for me to get better. There's a quote I want to share with you. Quote, "There could be no champion if there is no challenge." End quote. And like Joseph, I learned humility to trust the process. I clung to faith and not to fear, because every experience, even the tough ones, was equipping me for the next step. So here's where I see society missing the mark on all of this. On social media, we're bombarded with messages like hustle harder or skip the struggle, as if success happens overnight. Yet, Joseph's story teaches us the opposite. Growth takes time, and challenges are part of the process. Too often, we idolize the palace moments, Those moments where you're already at the finish line or when you're already being rewarded, instead of acknowledging the time that you were in the pit and in the prison when you're learning all of those skills. Basically, acknowledging the fruit, but don't acknowledge the root. My perspective, I think we need to embrace our own personal journeys and don't compare our chapter 3s to someone's chapter 30s. Success is not about a destination. It's about who you become along the way. So how can we apply Joseph's story to our lives as we close out 2024 and prepare for 2025? Here are 3 steps. Step 1, reframe challenges. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what is this teaching me? It's a more insightful question. Step number 2, stay faithful to your gifts. Even when Joseph was in prison, he used his gifts to help others. Don't bury your gifts. Keep sharpening them. Step number 3, trust the process. Like Joseph, trust that the challenges that you are facing are preparing you for a bigger purpose. Remember this, growth isn't glamorous, but is worth it. So as you go into 2025, affirm yourself of this. Every step I take, even the hard ones, is leading me closer to my purpose. I trust the process and welcome the growth. Thank you for tuning into MVP, the My Visionz Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if this video resonated with you and to send it to someone who may need to hear this message today. Together, let's step into 2025 stronger, wiser, and more intentional than ever. Until next time, take care and stay focused on your vision.